June 4, 1944. The Atlantic Ocean looked calm. But beneath those gray waves, one German submarine was fighting for survival. Depth charges exploded all around her. Steel plates groaned. Lights flickered. Water rushed through damaged pipes. Inside U-505, panic spread through every compartment. Then came the order no German submarine captain ever wanted to give. Abandon ship. Within minutes, the crew jumped into the cold Atlantic, believing their submarine would disappear forever beneath the waves. But something happened that had never happened before. Instead of sinking, American sailors did something almost impossible. They climbed aboard a Nazi submarine while it was still flooding. What they discovered inside would become one of the greatest intelligence victories of World War II. Even more remarkable, after surviving the disaster, U-505's captain submitted a report to Germany describing exactly what happened. His account revealed confusion, panic, mistakes, and a shocking respect for the Americans who risked their own lives to capture his submarine. This is the forgotten story of America's greatest naval capture, and the report that remained hidden for decades. Chapter 1: The Battle for the Atlantic. By 1944, the Atlantic Ocean had become the most dangerous battlefield on Earth. Every day, thousands of Allied merchant ships crossed the ocean carrying fuel, food, aircraft, tanks, and millions of tons of supplies. Without these convoys, Britain would starve, the Soviet Union would lose American equipment, and the Allied invasion of Europe might never happen. Standing in their way was Hitler's underwater fleet, the U-boats. These submarines were designed for one purpose: destroy shipping, disappear into the darkness, strike again. At the beginning of the war, they were terrifyingly successful. Entire convoys vanished. Thousands of sailors never returned home. The Atlantic became known as the Black Pit, a place where rescue was almost impossible. German commanders believed their submarines would slowly choke Britain into surrender. For a time, they were right. But by 1944, the balance had changed. American shipyards were producing destroyers faster than Germany could build submarines. New radar technology could detect U-boats even at night. Aircraft carrying radar searched huge areas of the Atlantic. Escort carriers brought fighter planes into places submarines once considered safe. Even secret intelligence was working against Germany. Unknown to most German commanders, Allied cryptographers were reading many of their encrypted communications. The hunters had become the hunted. One American task group earned a deadly reputation. Task Group 22.3, led by Captain Daniel Vincent Gallery. Unlike traditional naval commanders, Gallery had an unusual dream. He didn't just want to sink a submarine. He wanted to capture one, alive. Many officers laughed at the idea. A damaged submarine usually sank within minutes. Boarding one at sea, while enemy sailors were still nearby, seemed impossible. But Gallery refused to give up. His crews trained endlessly. Boarding teams practiced climbing ropes, opening watertight doors, disarming explosives, and saving sinking ships. Few believed those skills would ever be needed. Fate had other plans. Chapter 2: The Unlucky Submarine. The submarine destined to change history was U-505. Built in Hamburg, she entered service in 1941. Like many Type IXC submarines, she was built for long-distance patrols. Nearly 252 feet long, powered by diesel engines on the surface, electric motors underwater. She carried 14 torpedoes, a deck gun, anti-aircraft weapons, and enough fuel to patrol for months. To Allied merchant sailors, she represented death beneath the waves. But strangely, U-505 developed a reputation inside the German Navy for bad luck. Mechanical failures plagued patrol after patrol. Engines broke down. Equipment malfunctioned. Attacks failed. Repairs became constant. Crew morale suffered. Some sailors quietly whispered the submarine was cursed. Whether anyone truly believed it, no one could deny. Misfortune followed U-505 everywhere. Things became even worse after her captain, Peter Czech, suffered a complete mental breakdown during an Allied attack. As depth charges exploded around the submarine, he reportedly shot himself inside the control room. It was one of the rarest tragedies in submarine history. Leadership passed to another officer, who managed to save both the crew and the submarine. Afterward, Germany assigned a new commander, Oberleutnant Harold Lang. Calm, professional, experienced. His mission was simple: return U-505 to combat, restore confidence, prove the submarine could still fight. Instead, he unknowingly sailed toward history. In late May 1944, U-505 departed France, heading toward the waters off West Africa. Her mission was to intercept Allied shipping. The crew hoped this patrol would finally erase years of bad luck. None of them knew American forces were already searching nearby, and someone aboard an American escort carrier had spent months preparing for exactly this moment. The next morning, American radar operators detected something unusual on the horizon. Within minutes, fighter aircraft roared overhead. Destroyers accelerated to full speed. Deep beneath the Atlantic, Captain Harold Lang suddenly realized his submarine had sailed directly into an American trap. What happened over the next 90 minutes would become one of the most daring naval operations in military history, and change the course of intelligence warfare forever. Chapter 3: The Hunter-Killer Group. By the summer of 1944, the United States Navy had transformed the Atlantic into a deadly hunting ground. Instead of simply escorting convoys, the Navy now sent out specialized hunter-killer groups. Their mission wasn't to defend. Their mission was to hunt. One of the most effective was Task Group 22.3. At its center was the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal. Surrounding her were 5 destroyer escorts, small compared to battleships, but perfectly designed to chase submarines. Together they formed a deadly team. Aircraft searched from above. Destroyers searched below. If one spotted a U-boat, everyone attacked. Leading them was Captain Daniel V. Gallery. Unlike most commanders, Gallery believed something that many thought was impossible. He believed a German submarine could be captured, not destroyed. Captured. Months before this mission, he ordered special boarding parties to train. They practiced climbing onto damaged ships. They learned how German submarines were designed. They memorized the locations of secret documents, codebooks, radio rooms, and demolition charges. Many officers quietly joked that Gallery was wasting valuable training time. After all, every German submarine captain was trained to scuttle his boat before surrendering. No U-boat would ever remain afloat long enough to capture, or so everyone believed. Chapter 4: Contact. On the morning of June 4, 1944, that belief was about to be tested. Far below the Atlantic, U-505 cruised silently underwater. Inside the submarine, life followed its usual rhythm. Diesel fumes lingered in the air. Electric motors hummed softly. Crewmen checked gauges, adjusted valves, and waited. Suddenly, hydrophone operators detected propeller noise. At first, it sounded distant, then louder, much louder. Harold Lang immediately understood. Enemy ships. Not one, several. He ordered the submarine deeper. Silence filled every compartment. Every sailor knew the rules. No unnecessary movement. No talking. No noise. The submarine disappeared beneath the Atlantic, hoping the Americans would pass overhead. Instead, they stopped. Above them, one American destroyer escort had detected a suspicious sonar contact. The contact moved exactly like a submarine. The captain immediately reported the position. Within minutes, the entire task group began closing in. The hunt had begun. Chapter 5: The First Attack. The first destroyer swept directly over U-505. Inside the submarine, the crew listened carefully. The sound of propellers grew louder, until it thundered overhead. Then, silence. For a few terrifying seconds, nothing happened. Then the ocean exploded. Depth charges. Massive columns of water slammed against the submarine. The entire hull shook violently. Lights flickered. Tools flew from shelves. Pipes burst. Crewmen were thrown against steel bulkheads. The pressure inside the submarine became unbearable. Another explosion. Then another. The destroyers circled again. Each pass brought another deadly pattern of depth charges. The Americans weren't guessing anymore. They knew almost exactly where U-505 was hiding. Inside the control room, Captain Lang fought to keep control. Reports flooded in. Battery compartment damaged. Electrical systems failing. Water entering aft section. Pressure dropping. Every explosion made the situation worse. Oil leaked through damaged pipes. The submarine lost depth control. Air pressure fluctuated wildly. One damaged valve allowed seawater into critical machinery. Another explosion knocked out electrical equipment. Now, the submarine was no longer simply hiding. She was dying. Chapter 6: Running out of options. For nearly 30 minutes, the Americans continued attacking. Destroyers coordinated every pass with precision. Whenever U-505 changed course, sonar operators found her again. Every escape attempt failed. Captain Lang now faced every submarine commander's nightmare. His boat could no longer remain underwater. Carbon dioxide levels continued rising. Electrical systems weakened. Steering became unreliable. Worst of all, the submarine slowly began rising toward the surface. Whether the crew wanted it or not, Lang understood exactly what that meant. The moment they surfaced, American guns would already be waiting. He gathered his officers. The choices were painfully simple. Remain underwater, and everyone would suffocate. Surface, and face overwhelming American firepower. There was no good answer, only survival. Finally, Lang gave the order. Prepare to surface. Inside the submarine, every sailor knew what came next. As compressed air forced water from the ballast tanks, the submarine began rising. Slowly, steadily, toward daylight, toward the enemy. Chapter 7 Into the Trap. At approximately 11 a.m., U-505 burst through the Atlantic surface. Immediately, American aircraft spotted her. Pilots radioed the destroyers. There she is. Within seconds, every American ship turned toward the submarine. Machine guns opened fire. The Americans deliberately aimed high, trying to keep German sailors away from the deck gun. Shells struck the water around the submarine. Bullets ricocheted across steel. German sailors rushed from the conning tower. Some attempted to man anti-aircraft guns. Others simply jumped into the ocean. Captain Lang knew fighting was hopeless. American ships surrounded them from every direction. Aircraft circled overhead. Escape was impossible. But before abandoning the submarine, German crews followed strict orders. Destroy everything. Secret documents, codebooks, Enigma materials, navigation charts, radio logs. Then, open the sea valves. Plant demolition charges. Scuttle the submarine. Never allow enemy forces to capture her. German sailors rushed through the compartments, opening flooding valves, setting explosive charges, and abandoning ship. One by one, they leaped into the Atlantic. Many believed U-505 would disappear beneath the waves within minutes. The Americans would rescue survivors, but the submarine itself would be gone forever. Captain Harold Lang was among the last to leave. As he entered the water, he looked back one final time. His submarine drifted alone. Smoke escaped from her engines. She listed slightly. Water poured into open valves. Everything suggested she would soon sink. The German captain believed the mission was over. He had no idea that a handful of American sailors were preparing to attempt something almost no navy had ever done before. While German sailors floated helplessly in the Atlantic, Captain Daniel Gallery shouted an order that stunned even his own officers. Board her. Not after she stopped sinking. Not after the danger had passed. No. With demolition charges possibly still ticking, with seawater flooding every compartment, and with no guarantee the submarine wouldn't explode beneath them, an American boarding team raced toward U-505. The next 15 minutes would become one of the bravest and most dangerous operations in U.S. naval history. Chapter 8 Board that submarine. The order echoed across the deck of the USS Pillsbury. Board her. For a brief moment, no one moved, not because they were afraid, but because the order seemed unbelievable. No American sailors had ever boarded a sinking enemy U-boat in the middle of the Atlantic. The risks were enormous. The submarine could explode at any second. Hidden demolition charges might still be counting down. Flooding compartments could trap anyone inside. Torpedoes remained aboard. Fuel tanks were leaking. And no one knew if armed German sailors were still hiding below. Yet the volunteers didn't hesitate. Lieutenant Albert David quickly assembled a boarding party. Each man knew the mission. Reach the submarine. Stop the flooding. Recover every classified document possible. If they failed, the Atlantic would swallow both the submarine and everyone aboard her. Chapter 9 Climbing onto a ghost ship. A small whaleboat raced through the rough Atlantic. Ahead, U-505 drifted silently. No gunfire. No movement. Only seawater pouring through open valves. As the Americans approached, they noticed something strange. The submarine wasn't sinking as quickly as expected. She floated low in the water, but remained stubbornly afloat. It was a narrow window of opportunity. Lieutenant David climbed first. The steel hull was slippery with seawater and diesel fuel. One wrong step could send a sailor into the ocean beneath the submarine's sharp hull. The boarding team reached the conning tower. Every hatch stood open. Darkness waited below. No one knew what was inside. David took a deep breath, then climbed down. Chapter 10. Into the darkness. Inside, the submarine felt strangely alive. Lights flickered. Machinery still hummed. Water rushed through open flooding valves. Loose equipment rolled across the floor. The smell was overwhelming. Diesel fuel, burned wiring, battery acid, seawater, smoke. The boarding team moved carefully. Every compartment could contain explosives or hidden Germans. Pistols drawn, they searched room after room. Nothing. The crew had abandoned the submarine completely. Now came the real challenge: saving her. Water poured into several compartments. German sailors had opened sea valves before abandoning ship. If nothing changed, the submarine would sink within minutes. American sailors desperately searched for every flooding valve. One by one, they forced them shut. Others disconnected demolition charges. Electrical systems sparked dangerously. More water continued entering through damaged pipes. The submarine slowly settled lower. Time was running out. Chapter 11. The Greatest Prize. While engineers fought the flooding, other sailors searched the control room. What they found exceeded every expectation. Maps, patrol orders, signal books, communication logs, authentication tables, secret operating instructions. Then, something even more valuable: the Enigma cipher machine. The Germans believed Enigma made every message impossible to decode. For years, they trusted it completely. Now, an intact machine sat before American sailors. Nearby, they discovered codebooks that should never have survived. Most submarine crews threw them overboard during emergencies. Others burned them. But the attack had happened so quickly. There had been no time. The documents remained exactly where German officers had left them. Every second mattered. The Americans stuffed papers into bags. Charts disappeared into waterproof containers. Radio logs, codebooks, weather reports, call signs, everything came with them. What seemed like ordinary paperwork would become one of the greatest intelligence victories of the war. Chapter 12. A race against the ocean. Saving documents was only half the mission. The submarine herself was still sinking. Outside, American destroyers maneuvered carefully around the drifting U-boat. Inside, the boarding team continued fighting flooding. They patched pipes, closed valves, started emergency pumps, disconnected explosive charges. Some sailors worked waist-deep in freezing seawater. Others crawled through narrow passageways barely wide enough for one person. Every minute, the submarine settled lower. Captain Gallery watched nervously from the USS Guadalcanal. If U-505 slipped beneath the surface now, the boarding team would almost certainly die with her. Still, he refused to abandon them. Then came another problem. The submarine's engines were dead. Without power, she couldn't move. Without movement, she remained vulnerable to sinking. American engineers improvised. Tow lines were prepared. Slowly, carefully, destroyers began pulling the damaged submarine through the Atlantic. It was the first successful tow of a captured enemy U-boat in modern naval history. The impossible mission was becoming reality. Chapter 13. The secret no one could know. As German survivors were rescued from the water, most believed their submarine had already sunk. Captain Harold Lang thought exactly the same. He assumed the Americans had recovered only prisoners, nothing more. That misunderstanding became one of the Allies' greatest advantages. If Germany discovered U-505 had been captured intact, they would immediately change naval codes. Every Enigma procedure would be replaced. Countless Allied intelligence operations would collapse overnight. So the U.S. Navy made an extraordinary decision. Everything about U-505 would become top secret. German prisoners were isolated. They were forbidden from contacting anyone. The International Red Cross wasn't informed. Families in Germany received no details. For months, Berlin believed U-505 had simply disappeared at sea. The secret remained intact, and Allied intelligence continued reading valuable German communications. Sometimes, winning a war depends not only on weapons, but on keeping one extraordinary secret. But the most revealing part of the story came after the war. When German records were examined, historians uncovered Captain Harold Lang's own account of the battle. His report described the terror inside U-505, the impossible decisions he faced, the mistakes that doomed his crew, and his surprising assessment of the American sailors who captured his submarine. His words would forever change how historians viewed one of World War II's greatest naval operations. Chapter 14: What Harold Lang Told Germany. When World War II ended, historians began examining thousands of captured German military records. Among them was Captain Harold Lang's official account of the loss of U-505. It wasn't a dramatic confession. It wasn't an emotional diary. It was a professional naval report. Calm, detailed, methodical, but between its carefully chosen words, you could sense the weight of failure. Lang described how quickly the American attack developed. He explained that once the first accurate sonar contact was made, his submarine never truly escaped. Every attempt to change depth, every effort to alter course, was answered by another devastating barrage of depth charges. According to his report, the American destroyers showed remarkable coordination. Unlike earlier years of the war, they did not attack randomly. They hunted with precision. To Lang, it was obvious that Allied anti-submarine tactics had reached an entirely new level. Chapter 15: The Damage That Changed Everything. Lang explained that the explosions caused far more than physical damage. Inside the submarine, chaos spread quickly. Electrical systems failed. Critical instruments stopped working. The steering became unreliable. Water entered through damaged systems. Battery gases created dangerous conditions. Crew members struggled simply to remain standing as each explosion slammed the hull. The submarine itself began betraying its crew. Every damaged system reduced their options. Every minute underwater made survival less likely. Eventually, remaining submerged was no longer possible. In his report, Lang admitted that surfacing was not a tactical decision. It was a necessity. Had he stayed below, his crew might have died without ever seeing daylight again. Chapter 16: Why U-505 Didn't Sink. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding U-505 was simple. Why didn't she sink? German crews were specifically trained to destroy their submarines before capture. Lang reported that the crew followed those procedures. Sea valves were opened. Scuttling preparations began. Important materials were supposed to be destroyed. The crew abandoned ship expecting the Atlantic to finish the job. But the attack unfolded with incredible speed. Some demolition procedures were interrupted. Certain flooding valves were not as effective as expected. Damage from the depth charges complicated the scuttling process itself. Instead of slipping beneath the waves, U-505 remained barely afloat. It wasn't because the Germans failed to follow orders. It was because the battle developed faster than anyone anticipated. That brief delay, lasting only minutes, gave the Americans the opportunity they had spent months preparing for. History sometimes changes because of planning, sometimes because of luck. On June 4, 1944, it was both. Chapter 17: Respect for the Enemy. Perhaps the most surprising part of Lang's report was his description of the Americans. He had every reason to criticize them. After all, they had captured his submarine. They had taken his crew prisoner. His military career was effectively over. Yet his report acknowledged something important. The Americans acted with exceptional speed. Their boarding operation was immediate. Their organization was disciplined. Their determination prevented the submarine from sinking. From Lang's perspective, the Americans achieved something almost unbelievable. Instead of simply destroying another U-boat, they risked their own lives to save it. Many historians believe this quiet recognition reflected professional respect between naval officers. Both sides understood the dangers of submarine warfare. Both sides knew how extraordinary the capture truly was. Chapter 18: The Intelligence Victory. While Captain Lang focused on the battle, American intelligence officers focused on something else. The documents recovered aboard U-505. Inside the submarine, boarding teams collected secret radio procedures, current patrol orders, weather reports, signal books, recognition manuals, navigation charts, authentication tables, and an operational Enigma machine with related materials. Combined with information already being gathered elsewhere, these materials helped Allied intelligence verify and exploit German naval communications. Just as important, Germany never realized the submarine had been captured intact. The prisoners were isolated. The mission remained classified. Berlin assumed U-505 had been lost at sea. Because of that misunderstanding, German naval communication procedures were not immediately overhauled. For the Allies, that secrecy proved almost as valuable as the submarine itself. Chapter 19: Hidden from the World. The capture remained one of America's most closely guarded wartime secrets. Newspapers never reported it. Radio broadcasts never mentioned it. Even many sailors who participated could say almost nothing about the mission. The German prisoners were held in secret camps inside the United States. Their mail was monitored. Outside contact was tightly restricted. The goal was simple: ensure that no message reached Germany revealing the truth. Months later, when Allied forces landed in Normandy, German commanders still believed U-505 had simply disappeared. The secret had done its job. Today, millions of visitors walk past U-505 without realizing how close she came to disappearing forever beneath the Atlantic. The submarine survived because of courage, training, and a few extraordinary minutes that changed naval history. But her greatest legacy isn't just the steel hull that remains. It's the story she still tells. In the final chapter, we'll explore where U-505 is today, why historians consider her one of the most important war trophies ever captured, and how one daring American mission became a permanent symbol of courage, intelligence, and innovation during World War II. Chapter 28 Trophy unlike any other. When the war finally ended, thousands of tanks, aircraft, and ships had been destroyed. Most became twisted wreckage, lost forever beneath the ocean. But one submarine survived. Not because Germany protected it, not because it escaped the war, but because American sailors refused to let it sink. The capture of U-505 became something unique in military history. It wasn't simply a battlefield victory. It was an intelligence victory, a technological victory, and above all, a victory of courage. For the first time since the War of 1812, the United States Navy had captured an enemy warship on the high seas. More than 130 years had passed since such an achievement. Captain Daniel Gallery's impossible dream had become reality. Chapter 21 The Men Who Risked Everything. History often remembers famous generals, powerful politicians, legendary admirals. But the capture of U-505 belonged to ordinary sailors. Lieutenant Albert David and his boarding team knew exactly what they were risking. They climbed onto a submarine that could have exploded beneath their feet. They entered dark compartments without knowing whether armed Germans still waited inside. They worked in rising water, surrounded by leaking fuel, damaged electrical systems, and unexploded demolition charges. One mistake, one hidden explosive, one structural failure, could have killed every man aboard. Yet they continued. Not for glory, not for medals, because the mission demanded it. For his extraordinary leadership. Albert David received the Medal of Honor, the only U.S. Navy Medal of Honor awarded for action in the Atlantic Theater during World War II. Many other members of the boarding party also received decorations for their courage. Their names may not be as famous as those of battlefield commanders, but their actions changed history. Chapter 22 U-505's new home. After the war, the question became, what should America do with its captured submarine? Some suggested scrapping her. Others proposed sinking her during naval exercises. Fortunately, another idea prevailed. Preserve her. Today, U-505 rests safely inside the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. More than a museum exhibit, she is a time capsule. Visitors walk through the same narrow corridors where German sailors once lived for months. They stand inside the cramped control room, where Captain Harold Lang fought to save his crew. They see the engine rooms, the torpedo compartments, the radio equipment, and the tiny bunks where submariners slept. The submarine is no longer a weapon. She has become a classroom, a reminder of both the dangers of war and the value of preserving history. Every scratch in her steel hull tells a story. Every valve, every hatch, every instrument survived one of the most remarkable days in naval history. Chapter 23 What Harold Lang Never Expected. When Harold Lang abandoned U-505, he believed he would never see his submarine again. He assumed the Atlantic would erase every trace of her. Instead, his submarine crossed an ocean, survived the war, and became one of the world's most famous naval artifacts. His official report revealed professionalism, discipline, and honesty about the battle. It also unintentionally documented the moment when German submarine dominance had truly begun to fade. By 1944, technology, air power, radar, sonar, and Allied coordination had transformed the Battle of the Atlantic. The U-boats that once terrorized shipping now found themselves relentlessly hunted. U-505 became a symbol of that turning point. Chapter 24 Lessons from the Atlantic. The story of U-505 isn't simply about a captured submarine. It's about preparation. Captain Daniel Gallery trained his crews for a mission that many believed would never happen. When the opportunity finally appeared, They were ready. It's about leadership. Harold Lang made difficult decisions under impossible circumstances, trying first to save his crew, then to deny valuable intelligence to the enemy. It's about courage. American sailors willingly entered a sinking enemy submarine. German sailors endured relentless depth charge attacks inside a steel tube hundreds of feet beneath the Atlantic. And it's about history's unpredictability. Sometimes, wars are changed not by massive battles, but by a few minutes, a few decisions, and a handful of determined people. On June 4, 1944, the Atlantic Ocean witnessed something no one expected. A damaged German submarine surfaced. Its crew abandoned ship. American sailors climbed aboard, and history changed forever. The intelligence recovered from U-505 strengthened Allied operations. The capture demonstrated extraordinary naval skill, and the mission became one of the greatest examples of courage and innovation in World War II. Captain Harold Lang's report reminds us that even enemies could recognize professionalism and bravery. His words, and the actions of both crews, offer a rare glimpse into one of the war's most remarkable encounters. Today, U-505 no longer sails beneath the Atlantic. She rests quietly in Chicago, visited by millions every year. Silent, motionless, yet still telling the story of the day when courage, preparation, and determination accomplished what many believed was impossible. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more untold stories from World War II, naval warfare, and secret military operations, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because history isn't just about the battles everyone remembers, it's about the incredible moments almost everyone forgot. Thanks for watching.